Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tip-STERS with Melissa Morgan.
How do you do?
If you've got a tip for Melissa, a true crime adventure in your hometown, a cold case you think you might warm up, the bathroom code to Starbucks that works for everybody but me, anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host, diamond in the back, sunroof top, digging the scene in a gangsta. Hers, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Oh, producer Mark, what the hell was that song? It's not Freddy's Dead. What was that song? It's something about that.
Gangsta. What was it?
I know, you got to sing the whole thing.
I don't know.
Diamond in the back.
Sunroof.
Yeah, can't remember. That's how bad we're so old.
Something about money not being,
I thought it's not Freddy's Dead.
No, it's not Freddy's Dead.
Shit. Okay.
Because Freddy's Dead is pretty much just Freddy's dead. Freddy's dead. See?
That's it. That's the lyrics, right?
They could have hired you for the flute
They
part.
should have.
Yeah.
I am often called Melissa Morgan, the human flute.
Yeah, that's right.
I am the human flute.
Yes, at the very least.
But it's spelled P-H-L-U-T.
Yes,
human
right.
flute.
Exactly.
So not quite one day later, happy birthday to producer Mark.
Oh, shucks.
Who turned 107.
Thank you.
Yes, because he is a Highlander.
Uh-huh.
And he will never die. You're not allowed.
Your lips to God's ear, darling.
Yep, you're not allowed.
Okay.
Yeah. I've often told you during our almost 17-year marriage, 19 years together, that if you feel like you're getting sick, you need to put a pillow over my head because I don't want to be here without you. But then if you get well, I will be angry and come back and haunt you.
Yeah, see, that's the thing.
Yeah, you got to figure out. If you're dying, you got to take me with you.
There's a problem with that whole thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's well planned out. I'm just saying that's what you have to do.
No.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. So, this is kind of a perfect lead-in to homicide, suicide, matricide, however you want to, not killing someone on a mattress, but being married to someone who you kill or whatever the heck. It is one of those fascinating stories that I'm always interested in manner of death, and especially if it's not a serial killer let's be honest, sometimes serial killers can be a bit boring because they rarely, veer off of their MO. So if someone is killed from a family member out of anger or some other issue, or a paramour kills someone they're in love with for ridiculous reasons, it can be interesting. This one was really interesting to me because it was like, who would want to kill this guy? And does he have some sort of weird buried past? Well, no, tipsters. He constructed this amazing manner of death for himself, and geography helped because of where he lived in Florida. And he swiped it from a really awful 2003 episode of CSI, which I'm a big fan of CSI. It's typically, it's compressed, obviously. I remember discussing with the coroner for Kenton County, where I grew up when I was a stringer for a little newspaper. First thing I wanted to do was talk to the coroner because I've always loved, dead people and shit. And Dr. Robert Reich, older gentleman at the time, had been voted in as the Kenton County coroner for the 875th time, and he was so sweet to talk to me. And some of the tipsters are going to be way too young, but one of the first things he said to me was, a case doesn't get solved in an hour like on Quincy M.E., starring Jack Klugman. Are you going to sing the theme song now? Da, 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 da. I knew that was going to happen. I knew you could not stop yourself. So, yeah, most murders are not solved in an hour on like a scripted television show. However, CSI, is fascinating to me in that the way they film things. And it's, obviously fictionalized, but I'm sure they have to do a lot of medical research to show some of the experiments that they do. And obviously it's extremely, it's not professional. And they do like, well, if I shoot through this pizza and then there's tomato sauce on it, that's how it got in his body. I mean, it's kind of weird, but this episode, I can't imagine anyone drawing any sort of creative inspiration from this horrible, horrible episode. And yet,
only on 12, police call it an elaborate plan, one that was meant to fool everyone.
But in the end, the Palm Beach Gardens man didn't cover all his tracks. CBS 12 News anchor Paul Mueller is live at the scene in Palm Beach Gardens with the findings. Paul?
Well, after their nearly 6-month-long investigation, Palm Beach Gardens police releasing this report exclusively to CBS 12 News tonight. It is a case of 72-year-old Alan Abrahamson. His body found in the field behind me. Now, tonight, police concluding he took his own life, and it was not murder.
And that was the news report from Channel 12, the local Palm Beach Gardens journalists who covered this. So now question number one would be, what the fuck? Why would you want to kill yourself and make it look like murder unless you wanted to frame someone else? And no. So it's really fascinating, and I can't wait to discuss this. But so Alan J. Abrahamson, 71 or 72, depending on what news source you read. Well-off Palm Beach Gardens resident was found with a bullet wound in his chest, lying in a field near his home, which is abuts a country club in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, on January 25th of this year, 2018. So I was thinking, wow, who wants to kill this old dude who's, has not lived a compromised lifestyle. He's not a streetwalker or, a drug dealer. He's an old rich guy who retired but then became a consultant. And it's like, what's happening here? So Abrahamson was known to carry $200 or $300 in cash all the time in his wallet. So he was found with no wallet, no cash in his wallet. His Rolex watch was missing. And the police found no weapon or shell casings around him. So, of course, you think, oh, someone murdered him and laid him here in this field, or shot him in this field and took the weapon and went with him. No shell casings, no weapon. But you know what they did find, Producer Mark?
What did they find?
Small pair of scissors.
Uh-huh.
So he could have been cutting his nails out in a field.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Next to his 5,000 square foot house, because he didn't want to get nail clippings in the carpet and have Esmeralda be pissed off at him as she's vacuuming. Mr. Abrahamson, no more cut nails.
Yeah,
they're blocking the bissel.
Yeah, so they're gonna go. No bissel blocking in this.
No.
I have the special nighttime nail clippers. I go out to the park all the time in the middle of the night. They have the built-in flashlight.
The headlamp. They have a headlamp so you could just look down and cut your nails with the tiny scissors with your headlamp, like you're working in a mine.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that, right? Right. So they even had a $3,000 reward. I mean, that seems a little low considering this guy's kind of, rolling in it, but maybe, so there's a $3,000 reward, but there were no new leads, and time went on, and police were like, we've got more questions than answers for sure, which is what, every case starts with, right? But they never got any other questions answered. It just became more questions and more questions. So, he was apparently a very jovial man. Friends described him as having the most extraordinary smile, a contagious laugh, and a real twinkle in his eyes, which could have been from trimming his nails and he got popped in the eye with a errant nail. But that could attribute to the twinkle. But
maybe.
Could be. So surveillance video was obtained a few days after his death, and it showed him wearing a long sleeve sweatshirt, a blue baseball cap, shorts and sneakers, even in January, because it's Florida, and I'm sure it's, hotter than the devil's ass crack with 1,000% humidity. That's my official weather report for the 25th of January, the year of our Lord 2018, in Palm Beach Gardens,
Actually,
Florida.
it's really nice that time of
You
year.
shut your
for-
fucking pie hole.
okay.
This is my show.
Right.
And if I say it's hotter than the devil's ass crack, I cannot be disputed. You got it?
Aye, Captain.
Okay, thank you. So there's video of him walking toward this empty field wearing the long sleeve sweatshirt, which will come into play later why he's wearing, yeah, sure, right, it was probably great weather, but he's got a long sleeve sweatshirt on. So he walks off of the sidewalk in front of his home and then off camera. And there was something in his left hand. You couldn't really tell what it was, but you saw something in his left hand. And he walks off camera to this empty field next to his beautiful home. It's about 37 minutes later. You hear a gunshot. So what's happening during those 37 minutes? Perhaps he's considering his life, considering his family, considering how the hell am I supposed to do this? And he, from whatever, if there's another plane after this one, he's probably proud of himself because he pulled it off. And it took about 5 or 6 months to come to the conclusion because there wasn't a whole lot of evidence left. But like I said, geography really helps to play into that. So there's an email found on his phone, and it suggested that he bought a weather balloon on Christmas Day of 2017. So about exactly a month before, he concocted this bizarre plan from CSI. He bought himself on Christmas Day a weather balloon. Now his friends are like, he doesn't have any interest in, meteorology. What the F is that about? So no one could explain. Friends or family are like, we don't know. He's not an aerial photographer. We don't know what this is about. But a search of his records also showed that he purchased helium tanks. So it takes about a month before the police are like, we have a working theory. We're not sure what happened, but he could have concocted a suicide. And his family and friends are like, oh, no. So in the CSI episode, Marg Helgenberger, who's, a forensic researcher, whatever, is the smart one who figures out that this horrible character based on Dog the Bounty Hunter, let's call him
just the fake dog.
No, I was trying to think of another animal, like the lemur bounty hunter. He's not Dog the Bounty Hunter. He's Lemur the Bounty Hunter.
Bounty Hunter, okay.
So he has odd facial hair, the character, much like Dog the Bounty Hunter. He doesn't have he has a mullet, but it's a much shorter.
You look kind of more like, Hulk Hogan or something.
He did, you're right. Yeah, odd facial hair, etc. He's, he's loosely, let's call him loosely based on Dog the Bounty Hunter. That's why he's Lemur the Bounty Hunter. So very short story, very small part of this episode, as if you are a, scripted forensic-y, coroner-y show lover, you'll know that most of the time they cover more than one case unless it's some, big, fascinating case. So, and like, Law and Order, a lot of these cases are based on true life events. Now, this apparently was one that influenced real life people to copy this horrible idea. And yet it's worked better in Alan J. Abramson's case than the next case we're going to talk about, because he lived where the balloon could not be. It could go far away. So in this episode of CSI entitled Homebodies, what?
I believe it's season 4, episode 3.
Oh, thank you, producer Mark. Season 4, episode 3, 2003 CSI, the one in Las Vegas, not the one in Des Moines, Iowa. And this Lemur the Bounty Hunter missed capturing, it's so based on Dog the Bounty Hunter, missed capturing a fugitive in Mexico. Someone else caught him, and there was like a $75,000 bounty on his head, and Lemur the Bounty Hunter is all sad because he missed the big case of his life. He's on this, court. This is how they're constructing it in their mind in the wonderful writer's room of CSI. He has missed out on this case, and he is just going to do away with himself. Now, they don't mention his family, his need to collect or keep a large insurance policy, but he goes to a park that's known for, nefarious activity at night, buys 6 red balloons. I'm sorry. Pulls his shirt down over his hand so there's no fingerprint. I don't know how he got the gun there. I mean, does he spend some time with some Clorox wiping the prints off? None of this makes any motherfucking sense. And you'll have to refresh my memory. And producer Mark did a real yeoman's job of finding this horrible episode for me to watch and do research on. Do you remember where Lemur the bounty hunter shot himself?
He shot himself in the head.
The head, okay. So, which is interesting, I guess, in some ways. So what had happened to Lemur the bounty hunter is the same thing that happened to the second participant in this week's Just the Tipsters. His balloon got caught in a tree. And what actually happened was the extra layer on CSI is his balloon got caught in a tree, and the gun then became dislodged, and a little kid found it in a backyard and shot himself in the foot. So what Lemur had done, which is hilarious, a hilarious way to end it, where a little kid finds a gun and shoots himself in the foot. But he'll survive. He's just known as like Lefty now because he drags his foot behind him. No, he doesn't. I don't know what.
He was a cute little kid.
Adorable kid, straight out of Central Casting. Had on Spider-Man pajamas when he found the gun, shot himself in the foot. It's just adorable. So what Marg Helgenberger figures out from the episode of CSI is that Lemur the bounty hunter went to the balloon guy, who's there every day from dawn till 9 p.m., purchased, according to the balloon guy, when Marg Helgenberger holds up a picture of Lemur the bounty hunter. Hey, did you sell any balloons to this guy? Sure did. 6 big reds. I'm sorry. The fact that you name your balloons.
The dialogue was just priceless.
It was.
Yep, sure did. 6 big reds.
First of all, every balloon that the balloon guy sells is red. There were no other colors optional.
He's proud of his big reds. Don't get on his ass.
It sounds like a porn thing. 6 big reds. So he bought 6 big reds, attached the gun to the balloons, shot himself in the head while having his sleeve pulled down over his hand to not leave fingerprints. And then the balloon took the gun and floated up, and unfortunately, a fir tree or whatever the hell's indigenous to Florida caught the balloon and punctured it. Of course, they found a piece of latex in the tree because it's CSI, and they have to tie it all up in a pretty little bow. And the little kid, the gun ended up in a flower pot, and the kid found it, of course, and shot himself in the foot. So, the end. It was just retarded. It was just awful. It was just awful. So I looked up who wrote it, and Naren Shankar and Sarah Goldfinger. So apparently in India, you either need to kill yourself a lot and find creative mother effing ways to make it look like a murder. Why? I don't, there's a whole lot of insurance fraud happening in India. I don't know. But so Naren Shankar and Sarah Goldfinger, who I was like singing earlier, Goldfinger, she's the bad with the golden gun. Whatever.
Every time I finish one of these podcasts, I got like 4 songs in my head that you start singing.
Sorry.
It's
So
delightful.
it's the theme from Quincy.
Da 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 da. Sorry.
Goldfinger.
Incidentally, Errata, I just looked it up. It's season 4, episode 3 of, not season 3, episode 4. Apologies.
You said season 4, episode 3.
Oh, I did?
You did.
Shoot.
And who the fuck is Errata?
Oh, that's just Latin for I made a boo-boo.
Why do you need to speak Latin when you know I barely can speak English? I thought Errata was the name of a girl you were trying to tell me you were seeing.
No.
Okay. It sounds like a stripper name. Latin for error, errata. I like it. That's awesome.
Yes.
If we ever had a baby, I would name the baby that.
I don't think that would be a good idea.
Errata. Okay, so poor Alan J. Abramson apparently has a lot of time on his hands and watches old shitty episodes of CSI on, Nick at Night or Hulu or some bullshit. I don't know. So it takes about a month before the police are like, this may not be as far-fetched as we think. It could be plausible. There was a blood stain on Abrahamson's sweatshirt that sort of supported their weird theory. It's a long, thin line of blood that traveled up, meaning that he was shot and then fell back, and then the blood, like something drug through the blood and then went to the top of the shirt. That would have been probably the sweet little satin string that was tied to his weather balloon. I wonder if his was red. I wonder if they could tell what color it was when he ordered it online on Christmas Day for himself. So these intrepid investigators are like, I gotta look up old episodes of CSI and see what happened. Here's the episode of CSI Las Vegas from 2003. I'm gonna look at. Oh, look. So yeah, it shows the episode with Lemur the bounty hunter buying helium-filled balloons, tying a gun to it. It's bizarre and weird. Now, what Alan J. Abramson had going for him, besides, obviously his brilliant mind, his ability to buy balloons online on Christmas Day, and a little extra time on his hands, is that he lived in Palm Beach Gardens. So his balloon is theorized to have floated over the Atlantic. Maybe it, ran out of air someplace around the Bahamas. It's theorized it could go up to 105,000 feet. I'm still just stunned that this happened, is something someone thought of, is something someone wrote for CSI, and something that at least two people that we know of, have completed and almost got away with. It's very reminiscent of the old man at the end of Scooby-Doo, where it's like, and I would have got away with it too if it weren't for those nosy kids. If it weren't for those nosy CSI people, I would have gotten away with it. So more research after they get this theory, I think this might have been a suicide. More research showed that Abrahamson had researched ways to commit suicide, had researched what type of gun to use, various ways that a weather balloon could assist him. How does a life insurance pay out if it's an accident? It's all pretty fascinating stuff.
Sounds like he was kind of dumb for doing all that under his own name, all that research.
He's 72.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't, The thing that's really heartbreaking is that he was supposed to meet his best friend, Victor Greenstein, on that morning. And, I guess he thought, well, if I'm not going to show up, Victor will report me missing, which is, probably what happened. And Victor Greenstein was like, he was just the guy everyone would gravitate to. He was the fun guy. He was the guy everyone wanted to be around. And he couldn't really believe that his friend, Alan J. Abrahamson, would do this. And especially because if you're going to be thinking about ways to kill yourself and make it look like a murder, which is just the most bizarre, you would think someone would have financial issues. And Alan J. Abramson came from a family that was very well off, that was in the flooring business. He lived in a 5,000 square foot house in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, which it's a gated estate, Ballin Isles.
Yeah, it's like Beverly Hills on steroids.
Okay. He lived, in a 5,000 square foot house in the Ballin Isles Country Club development. Doesn't sound like, Greenbrier Estates trailer park. It doesn't sound, it sounds pretty nice. Happily married, loved his wife. His wife says he is the love of my life. Did some kind of shitty things in my mind. He and his wife were on a trip together, and he like somewhere north. I don't know if like it's Vermont. I'll try to find out. Try to remember. So he's on a vacation with his wife, and he's like, I need to go home early. I'm going to go back home early, and then I'll come back to where we are. I need to go home for something. Now, he was still working, even at the age of 71 or 72. He was still working. He was a consultant for an LED lighting company based in Washington. It's Every Watt Matters, WATT. It's Washington-based LED lighting company, and he'd been there for 5 years, and he, was happy at his job. They loved him. After he retired officially, he then becomes this consultant, and he's a developer of LED lights. So he has, a creative bent. He's helping, lighting to try and, solve lighting issues. It's very odd. So besides the little nail clippers, they found receipts for weather balloons, helium tanks, and specific rubber bands. And the rubber bands were also found near the nail clippers in the field. Same kind of rubber bands found in the field next to him. So he, kind of did it right and used his geography, in that he, did it to where it took a while to figure out, what the heck, but there's always going to be something and someone who can figure out, this isn't a murder. If someone's taking the time. These two cases, this one and the next one, which was a little easier to solve, which you'll find out why topography plays an important part in the next one. There's always going to be, hopefully, someone who works in law enforcement who's like, I can't just call this one. I can't just say it's a suicide or it's a murder, pardon me. I can't just say it's a murder and try and blame someone.
Some of these guys, they have to think out of the box. And
you have to.
And it's a rare trait, I think, in anybody. But you tend to find, I guess that's why these guys gravitate to this high level of police work.
Yeah, and maybe they get promoted because they have the kind of intuitive insight that's like, what, the blood is dripping upward. There's something that was drugged through the blood. If you were murdering someone, why would you hang around and do, XYZ? There's why is there a little nail clipper and some rubber bands? I mean, there have to be enough questions, and you have to be smart enough to see things. And you're right. I think most people get into law enforcement, the ones that aren't insane and want to feel powerful and carry a weapon legally, or feel like they have the reason to kill people, which I think is I can't help it. Everyone is so anti-law enforcement. I feel like that's probably a very small section. I think there are good cops and bad cops, and there are good plumbers and bad plumbers, and there are good podcasts and bad podcasts. And I think most people that go into law enforcement are, a type of doctor or nurse. They want to get the bad guy. They want to help. They want to help people. And they love a mystery.
Right. That's the component.
They love a mystery.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do. A lot of us do. We don't have the fortitude to go into law enforcement, physically, emotionally, mentally. But the ones that do and the ones that are good love a mystery. And they will pound everything, the pavement, their own fists, their own heads, until they solve the mystery.
Right. That's the character of Carrie Matheson on Homeland is somebody like that, only much to the extreme. She's like, I think
not every law enforcement person has bipolar 7.
Right. So,
or whatever the F.
But what that shows, I think what's interesting about that character and what that shows is how this way of thinking works. And I think most of these detectives that are successful at this have some form of that kind of intense ability to put seemingly unrelated things together.
Well, having a singular focus and an obsession about a case is one thing. Having access to 8,000 Post-it notes and being off your meds is another. So yeah, I know what you're saying. I've watched several episodes of Homeland, not episodes, several seasons of Homeland, but I feel like that's a much bigger. That's the macro where you're
right. Oh, absolutely.
You're investigating governments.
No,
right.
No, I was just talking about the way that the
way their mind works.
The ability to put seemingly unrelated things together and most other people would say, What?
Right. Now that I see. Yeah. You don't see that. I see what you're saying.
Nothing like that character is crazy. But the thing I liked about that show is that it just demonstrates in real, like in front of you, how that kind of thinking works. And
right.
I think these guys have some much smaller but definite type of thinking.
I think the good ones have an obsession, and that's what makes them good. I think that's absolutely true. So, believe it or not, one of the things found on a Google search of Alan Abrahamson's different devices, one of the questions was, can life insurance companies deny payment for suicide? And it to me, that just adds an element, because there was not a financial problem. They weren't in a huge amount of debt. It was like he wanted to make sure that his family was financially sound. And it's like, huh?
With all that money he had.
Right. I
mean, dude, your inheritance, just the cash, on hand.
Well, here's what he had done. And when you hear the first part, you think, he had a gambling problem or something. No, he had depleted his 401k, but he had taken the money out and put it toward life insurance. So he depleted his 401k to push it towards life insurance. So he didn't take it out to, buy, extra hookers that week or gamble on Pie Gal. I'm trying to remember the thing in Florida. Yeah, he wasn't gambling on bingo and Pie Gal or hookers. He put the extra money that he got out toward his life insurance. So it's still a mystery to me. I'm sure it's a mystery to his family, but it took 6 months before, they finally said, okay, this is a suicide. We're calling this case closed. And it's, even though they didn't find the balloon, they found enough evidence to prove it was a suicide. So now going back in time, in March of 2008, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a restaurant executive, Tom Hickman, did the same thing. And a detective in Albuquerque investigated by watching. He rented a copy of the 2003 episode of CSI Homebodies and figured it out. Now, here's where Mr. Hickman had a bit of a problem with geography and topography. He was out, in the desert, and his balloons were white, not red, because that guy who worked on the CSI episode wasn't available to sell him balloons in the middle of, the Albuquerque desert. His balloons caught on a cactus and left the gun and the popped balloons. He, however, shot himself in the back of the head.
How did he do that?
I don't know. He did a little more work than Alan J. Abrahamson, who just used the sleeve of his sweatshirt. This man did some rejiggering of the gun. So Tom Hickman, was thought to be a murder victim, even though the gun and the balloons were found. At first, it was, this guy was murdered out in, on a mesa. And then they found the gun and balloons and were like, well, why are these here? Is the murderer a clown? Perhaps it's a clown murderer. who has balloons. There was a
There was
rubber
a-
nose and one big shoe left in the...
Yeah.
No, not at all.
And the faint hint of carnival music playing.
And some cotton candy stuck to the bottom of the giant shoe. No, not at all. And some tears from carnies that are forced into...
Right.
No, not at all.
Oh, how I wish we could play that Dana Gould song right now.
Oh my God, yes.
Which we can't play.
That's
because
right.
It's not pod safe.
Jenks owe me a Coke. But if you ever have a chance to find on YouTube, or I know you can find it, it is a brilliant composition by the comic Dana Gould, where he sings a song he has written in the genre of Morrissey from the Smiths.
And it's dead on.
It is spectacular. His Morrissey is his cadence, it's spectacular. Even I have to say, it's the most well composed song in that it is there is a brevity of words, and yet they all are perfectly placed.
Oh, and it's got a great melody.
It has a great melody.
It's well written.
It's beautiful.
It could be a Morrissey song.
And the title is called Clown Fucker. So if you can find that, I guarantee you, I heard it on Sirius Satellite Radio on one of the comedy channels, and I had to pull off to the side of the road because I was laughing until part of my liver came out of one of my nostrils. It is a spectacular piece of music called Clown Fucker. So I'm hoping that that's not what happened to Tom Hickman. I'm kidding, it wasn't. So Tom Hickman was, had a different situation. He was a general manager of a Red Lobster from 1998 to 2003. Now, quite frankly, I'm surprised he made it to 2008 because I would have killed myself much sooner if I were the manager of a Red Lobster.
How long did he work there?
Well, he worked there a very long time, but he was promoted to director of operations in 2003. But from 1998 to 2003, so for 15 years, he was a general manager of the Red Lobster on College Road in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
They should monitor any 10-year veteran of Red Lobster for suicide watch.
I'm going to guess 6 months. Yeah. I think they should monitor any 6-month general manager veteran, because Red Lobster and Olive Garden are owned by the same company.
Can you imagine coming home every night smelling like that? They're
can you
probably
imagine
the loneliest people in the world.
He's married. He was married and had a very large group of family and friends. He was very religious, which is interesting. He and his wife started a Christian youth ministry called the Cafe on the Rock. He volunteered to cook at a place that helped homeless people called My Brother's Keeper. It's a soup kitchen. I mean, he was surrounded by, a large group of people, friends, family, but he, managed a Red Lobster.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's only so many Cheddar Bay biscuits you can eat before you just want to off yourself.
Just hearing that. I am really off my breakfast now.
So, full disclosure, tipsters, I'm allergic to shellfish, so please don't send me a lobster because I'll be very angry. And Red Lobster and Olive Garden. Red Lobster is not seafood. It's the McDonald's of seafood. Olive Garden is not Italian. It's what's lower than McDonald's?
It's the Taco Bell.
It's the Taco Bell of Italian food. There you go. That's beautiful.
We are just losing all kinds of sponsorship opportunities.
Goodbye, sponsors. Bye-bye.
It's pretty bad. But,
who needs sponsors? Sponsors are for sissies.
Yeah, that's what I always say.
That's what I always say. So poor Tom Hickman. He was 55. His wife and he, I guess, had moved to North Richland Hills, Texas. But he came back to New Mexico probably because he was the not director of bullshit, director of operations. He was the director of bullshit for 5 years. The director of operations for Red Lobster. He'd been transferred to Texas, so he and his wife lived there. It's southeast of Santa Rosa. So he would, I guess, have to come back to his territory in New Mexico. Now, he did a little differently. He was found with duct tape over his mouth. It's like, So they found 6 or 7 white balloons entangled in a cholla cactus about 30 feet from his body. So one of the detectives was like, I'm going to find out if helium balloons in a gun are ever used in an awesome episode of... Well, here it is.
I'm sure that's exactly how it worked.
That's how it happened, I think. I'm pretty sure. I could feel it through the ethers that's what happened. So it took a little while, but the medical investigators were like, it's a suicide. It's a suicide. But there was other evidence this time. He wasn't quite as lucky as Alan J. Well, I don't want to say lucky. He wasn't as
successful.
Yeah, but lucky too because of where he lived or where he did this and where there's cactus.
You don't do it in a field full of cactus. Yeah. I mean, come on. I think all the years at Red Lobster.
Yeah. Has affected his mind.
His sense of logic.
Right.
You might want to go, say, to a park or, don't go out in the middle of the desert where the only growing thing
has sharp, pointy needles.
Yeah. Just an idea.
And the thing is, he had worked even harder than Lemur the bounty hunter on the episode of CSI and harder than Alan J. Abrahamson, even though he had done all that research. Tom Hickman had to work to do this in his mind. And it's just so sad that it just didn't work out the way. I shouldn't say sad. That makes it sound bad but I'm just so sorry that he went to all this work. So he had removed the handgun's grip. He had sawed off the trigger guard, and these were in an attempt to lighten the weapon. They searched his garage in Texas and found matching metal shavings. There was only one single spent shell casing, that remained in the chamber. He just had one bullet, so he knew he was only going to use one. And there was no evidence that he had resisted his own death. So, if he had been taken out to the desert by a clown with balloons and a gun and a shoe and cotton candy and tears of carnies dried on it, there probably would have been some other evidence that led that way. He had, duct taped his own mouth, shot himself in the back of the head, had these balloons filled with helium. The weapon was tied to the badly named balloon bouquet. I just feel so. It's like, ding dong, who's there? It's your suicide balloon bouquet from balloon suicides are us.
Right.
I just think the word bouquet is just heartbreaking. So, his wife is like, he is a child of God. He had pain and self-doubt, but he, was a family man. He loved his family. He loved God. I loved him with all my heart. That's what his wife said. And it's just, the investigators were like, everything just pointed back to him killing himself. Now, he had a life insurance policy that would have paid his wife $388,000 or double the amount if his death was accidental. So there, even in 2008, it took him a couple of months and they figured it out. Yep, he killed himself. And his family had a hard time really believing it. I totally understand that. You never want to believe that. And especially something so planned and thought out and where he had to take steps and measures and, saw part of a gun off and duct tape his own mouth. I mean, the whole thing is very heartbreaking. So I know this isn't a typical episode of Just the Tipsters where there's a bad guy and a good guy and someone is responsible for taking the life of someone else. But it's heartbreaking that these two men that we know of used, this terrible device to kill themselves in a badly thought out plan that their family would somehow be better off with money, but minus them, because that's never ever going to be the answer. That's never the answer. A local Palm Beach Gardens therapist who was interviewed by the journalist covering Alan J. Abrahamson's murder/suicide said that he had never seen anything like this either. Can you play that clip, producer Mark?
I'll be honest, it's just a bizarre situation. I mean, the word that comes to mind is bizarre. I can honestly say that in my practice, I've never had anyone fake a homicide and commit suicide. But clearly this wasn't something that he did on a whim. If they're experiencing severe emotional pain and they're serious about hurting themselves, they want to take action fairly quickly.
You may be in pain. You may feel that there is no hope for you, but your family, your loved ones, you can't imagine the ramifications of what you're doing. You cannot know what you're doing to your family and friends who will live with the guilt of not seeing a sign, of not knowing how to help you, no matter what you think that you're doing that's helping your family, your loved ones, that the world is somehow going to be better off without you. Please know that you are wrong. Your family, your friends, your coworkers, the person who lives next door to you, who relies on you and you don't even know, they're going to be eaten up with guilt that they didn't see a sign that you were hurting as much as you were hurting. They are going to be empty and lost at knowing you're not there anymore. There's going to be a hole that cannot be filled by anyone else because you are a unique soul, a unique addition. You fill a purpose. You are the only one of you. You are needed and wanted. And the world is a different place without you in it. This world that can be difficult and overwhelming and feel crazy, and you think you would feel better not in this world. And I hope you will know that that's wrong and that we need you. We all need you here. And if you are feeling that you are not needed, I hope that you will consider calling someone, talking to someone, if you don't feel that there is a medical professional or a friend or family member you can talk about this with. Perhaps it would be easier for you to talk to someone who is a stranger and you hopefully will feel won't judge you or come back to haunt you with what you say. And I hope you feel like you can say anything and all of it. And if you need someone to talk to, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. And I hope you will consider calling that number if you don't want to call someone you know. If it's easier to talk to a trained professional who might be able to show you just a few of the reasons why we need you here. And I hope you'll reconsider that and stay with us. And more cowbell.
And once again, the number for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. And if you want to leave a tip for us, call us at 832-TIPSTER. That's 1-832-847-7837. Or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com.